Chapter 11. The Circular Staircase. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Lucy Burgoyne. The Circular Staircase by Mary Roberts Rinehart. Chapter 11. Halsey makes a capture. It was about 8:30 when we left the dining room, and still engrossed with one subject, the failure of the bank and its attendants, Evil's Halsey and I went out into the grounds for a stroll. Gertrude followed us shortly. The light was thickening, to appropriate Shakespeare's description of twilight, and once again the tree toads and the crickets were making night throb with their tiny life. It was almost oppressively lonely, in spite of its beauty, and I felt a sickening pang of homesickness for my city at night, for the clatter of horses' feet on cemented paving, for the lights, the voices, the sound of children playing. The country after dark oppresses me. The stars, quite eclipsed in the city by the electric lights, here become insistent, assertive. Whether I want to or not, I find myself looking for the few I know by name, and feeling ridiculously new and small by contrast, always an unpleasant sensation. After Gertrude joined us, we avoided any further mention of the murder. To Halsey, as to me, there was ever present, I was sure, the thought of our conversation of the night before. As we strolled back and forth along the drive, Mr. Jamieson emerged from the shadow of the trees. "Good evening," he said, managing to include Gertrude in his bow. Gertrude had never been even ordinarily courteous to him, and she nodded coldly. Halsey, however, was more cordial, although we were all constrained enough. He and Gertrude went on together, leaving the detective to walk with me. As soon as they were out of earshot, he turned to me. "Do you know, Miss Innes," he said, "the deeper I go into this thing, the more strange it seems to me. I am very sorry for Miss Gertrude. It looks as if Bailey, whom she has tried so hard to save, is worse than a rascal. And after her plucky fight for him, it seems hard." I looked through the dusk to where Gertrude's light dinner dress gleamed among the trees. She had made a plucky fight, poor child. Whatever she might have been driven to do, I could find nothing but a deep sympathy for her. If she had only come to me with the whole truth then. "Miss Innes," Mr. Jamieson was saying, "in the last 3 days have you seen any suspicious figures around the grounds? Any woman?" "No," I replied. "I have a house full of maids that will bear watching, one and all. But there has been no strange woman near the house, or Liddy would have seen her, you may be sure. She has a telescopic eye." Mr. Jamieson looked thoughtful. "It may not amount to anything," he said slowly. "It is difficult to get any perspective on things around here, because every one down in the village is sure he saw the murderer, either before or since the crime, and half of them will stretch a point or two as to the facts, to be obliging. But the man who drives the hack down there tells a story that may possibly prove to be important. I have heard it, I think. Was it the one the parlour maid brought up yesterday, about a ghost wringing its hands on the roof? Or perhaps it's the one the milk boy heard, a tramp washing a dirty shirt, presumably bloody, in the creek below the bridge?" I could see the gleam of Mr. Jamieson's teeth as he smiled. "Neither," he said. "But Matthew Geist, which is our friend's name, claims that on Saturday night at 9:30, a veiled lady." "I knew it would be a veiled lady," I broke in. "A veiled lady," he persisted, "who was apparently young and beautiful, engaged his hack and asked to be driven to Sunnyside, near the gate. However, she made him stop, in spite of his remonstrances, saying she preferred to walk to the house. She paid him, and he left her there. Now, Miss Innes, you had no such visitor, I believe?" "None," I said decidedly. "Geist thought it might be a maid, as you had got a supply that day, but he said her getting out near the gate puzzled him. Anyhow, we have now one veiled lady, who, with the ghostly intruder of Friday night, makes two assets that I hardly know what to do with." "It is mystifying," I admitted, "although I can think of one possible explanation. The path from the Greenwood Club to the village enters the road near the lodge gate. A woman who wished to reach the country club, unperceived, might choose such a method. There are plenty of women there." I think this gave him something to ponder, for in a short time he said good night and left. But I myself was far from satisfied. I was determined, however, on one thing. If my suspicions, for I had suspicions, were true, I would make my own investigations, and Mr. Jamieson should learn only what was good for him to know. We went back to the house, and Gertrude, who was more like herself since her talk with Halsey, sat down at the mahogany desk in the living room to write a letter. Halsey prowled up and down the entire east wing, now in the card room, now in the billiard room, and now and then blowing his clouds of tobacco smoke among the pink and gold hangings of the drawing room. After a little I joined him in the billiard room, and together we went over the details of the discovery of the body. The card room was quite dark. Where we sat in the billiard room only one of the side brackets was lighted, and we spoke in subdued tones, as the hour and the subject seemed to demand. When I spoke of the figure Liddy and I had seen on the porch through the card room window Friday night, Halsey sauntered into the darkened room, and together we stood there, much as Liddy and I had done that other night. The window was the same greyish rectangle in the blackness as before. A few feet away in the hall was the spot where the body of Arnold Armstrong had been found. I was a bit nervous, and I put my hand on Halsey's sleeve. Suddenly, from the top of the staircase above us, came the sound of a cautious footstep. At first I was not sure, but Halsey's attitude told me he had heard and was listening. The step, slow, measured, infinitely cautious, was nearer now. Halsey tried to loosen my fingers, but I was in a paralysis of fright. The swish of a body against the curving rail, as if for guidance, was plain enough, and now whoever it was had reached the foot of the staircase and had caught a glimpse of our rigid silhouettes against the billiard room doorway. Halsey threw me off then and strode forward. "Who is it?" he called imperiously, and took a half-dozen rapid strides toward the foot of the staircase. Then I heard him mutter something. There was the crash of a falling body, the slam of the outer door, and, for an instant, quiet. I screamed, I think. Then I remember turning on the lights and finding Halsey, white with fury, trying to untangle himself from something warm and fleecy. He had cut his forehead a little on the lower step of the stairs, and he was rather a ghastly sight. He flung the white object at me, and, jerking open the outer door, raced into the darkness. Gertrude had come on hearing the noise, and now we stood, staring at each other over, of all things on earth, a white silk and wool blanket, exquisitely fine. It was the most unghostly thing in the world, with its lavender border and its faint scent. Gertrude was the first to speak. "Somebody had it?" she asked. "Yes. Halsey tried to stop whoever it was and fell. Gertrude, that blanket is not mine. I have never seen before." She held it up and looked at it. Then she went to the door on the veranda and threw it open. Perhaps 100 feet from the house were two figures, that moved slowly toward us as we looked. When they came within range of the light, I recognized Halsey, and with him Mrs. Watson, the housekeeper. End of chapter 11.